very narrow waterway. And given Iran's control over it, it is impacted not just Gulf economies, but the global economy. Now, of course, we've got the naval blockade there as well by US military, and they have been diverting hundreds of ships now over the last few weeks away from Iranian ports, ensuring that Iran can't get some of its goods, ensuring that Iranian oil can't get away from Iranian ports and to the likes of India and China and some other countries. And of course, Iran have been blocking certain ships passing through as well. So the problem that we've got with the Strait of Hormuz is that, yes, Iran can take control of it, but also Iran are saying, whilst that US naval blockade remains in place, then, of course, we will not be negotiating as well. So we're in a very precarious situation around the Strait of Hormuz. It can flare up there whenever it wants to, and it has been doing over the last 10 days or so. If that shuts down once again, then, of course, it will have global impact, Rev.
All right. Thank you, Inzamam Rashid in Dubai. Joining us now is MS Now Senior National Security Reporter David Rode. David, we are just learning that President Trump has wrapped up a call with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Earlier, we heard he was reportedly unhappy with Israel over strikes in Lebanon. How do you expect that call went? Could this be a new break in the relationship?
There we go. I apologize for that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it's on my end. I apologize.
No problem. No problem.
I am sure that President Trump was pressuring Prime Minister Netanyahu to not retaliate and fire Israeli missiles or have Israeli aircraft bomb Iran. Netanyahu has to make a domestic political choice about whether he can do that. So there's no question the U.S.-Israeli relationship is under tremendous strain. And I just want to take a minute to step back. This is the 100th day of this war. And I just, look, I want this war to end, but this war has been a disaster for the Trump administration. I don't think anyone expected we would be 100 days into this war. The Strait of Hormuz would still be closed, and you would have Iranian missile attacks on Israel itself, sparked by, Israeli attacks inside Lebanon on Hezbollah. And you've had increasing attacks over the last few days in the Strait of Hormuz. So the president, I'm sure is, you talked about earlier, or MS Now did, gave an interview on Friday to NBC News to Kristen Welker, our great former colleague, and he said a deal was very close. A deal is not very close. This war is not going the way President Trump and his cabinet planned, and this is just the latest setback.
In light of that this is the latest setback, Axios is reporting Trump may urge Netanyahu not to strike back. How much pressure can the White House really put on Israel in a moment like this, especially after Iranian missiles were fired at Israeli civilians?
Look, President Trump can put significant pressure on Israel. There's no question. He did that in a way on Netanyahu to get him to accept a peace deal in Gaza quite a while ago. He's pressured him before. But, Israel has a right to defend itself. It's been attacked, and generally Israeli doctrine is to respond in kind to any attack. So I think there will be Israeli retaliation. The question is what scale it will be, and then does Iran retaliate? But again, there was a decision to go to war on February 28th. Apparently, the president and his top aides did not plan for the Strait of Hormuz to be closed. Iranian missiles and drones have been able to strike not Israel, but all the countries people see on their maps there: Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE. That continues to be. The U.S. cannot stop Iranian drone and missile strikes against those American allies in the Gulf. And that's a massive failure by the Trump White House to not anticipate that, and also not anticipate that Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz. So I think this administration needs a peace deal and needs it quickly. And the president, has just not handled this war well.
Now, the Revolutionary Guard is warning that U.S. bases could become targets if this escalates, saying, quote, "Tonight's operation was a warning, and if aggressions are repeated, the responses will be broader." From your reporting, how seriously is the administration taking the risk that American forces could be pulled into this conflict?
I think they are taking it very seriously. And U.S. warships so far have been able to defend themselves from these missile attacks, but they have broken through in different places. Almost all the casualties in the war so far have been Iranian missile strikes or drone strikes on U.S. bases on the ground. So there's no question there's a danger of that. Iran, just a few days ago, an advisor to the supreme leader told CNN in an interview, look, Iran could also escalate by firing on ships, having the Houthis, another one of their proxies, fire on ships in the Red Sea. That's a separate waterway, on the other side of Saudi Arabia that's also